This is the Illinois River near Starved Rock. In the 1970s, a foreign fish got loose in America, swam up this water, and took it over. In some stretches, it grew to 70% of everything alive in the river, by weight. People threw everything at it. Electricity through a canal, poison in the water, over $1 billion on a wall to keep it out of the Great Lakes. And still, the fish kept coming. Then, a few years ago, something flipped. The carp near Starved Rock started vanishing on their own. Scientists went out to find out why. What they found wasn't a predator. One of the two answers was something Chicago has been doing by accident for 100 years. Go back to the 1970s. Down in the American South, fish farmers had a problem. Their ponds kept clogging up with algae. So they went to China and brought back a fish that eats algae all day. Drop a few in a catfish pond and the water stays clean. It worked. Then the fish got out. Within about 10 years, they were breeding in the Mississippi Basin. From there, they pushed up into the Illinois River and kept climbing. These fish breed like almost nothing else in the water. One female silver carp can drop hundreds of thousands of eggs in a single season, sometimes over 1 million. Now picture every female in the river doing the same thing. They eat all day too. A silver carp swims with its mouth open and strains the plankton straight out of the water, the tiny stuff every native fish needs from the newborn fry on up. The carp gets to the bottom of the food chain first, and everything above it starts to starve. You can measure what that did. The gizzard shad, a native fish that eats the same plankton, thinned out fast. Bass and catfish feed on the shad, so the whole river runs on it. Once the carp moved in, the shad went into decline. The carp were quietly starving the natives out. Give it a few years, and the carp owned the place. In the central Illinois River, you now get more than 1,200 carp packed into a single kilometer of water. You pull a net, and it comes up carp, 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 and maybe one native fish gasping in the pile. And the silver carp does one more thing. It flies. A boat motor spooks it, and a 10-pound fish rockets straight up out of the water, as high as 10 feet in the air. Now you're doing 30 miles an hour down the river, and a fish the size of a bowling ball is coming at your face. The government keeps a list of what these fish do to people. Black eyes, broken bones, concussions, cuts from the fins. People have been knocked flat in their own boats by a fish they never saw coming. Illinois couldn't let it slide. The Illinois River runs north to Chicago and connects, through a man-made canal, straight into Lake Michigan. Let the carp reach that water and they do to the Great Lakes exactly what they did here. The plankton goes first, then the small fish that live on it, then the salmon, the perch, the whitefish, and every boat, dock, and town that runs on them. A $5 billion fishery hollowed out from the bottom, drinking water for more than 40 million people on the line. The state threw money at the door. In 2002, an electric barrier went into the canal about 37 miles from Lake Michigan. Then the state started planning the big one, a $1.5 billion project at Brandon Road, loaded with bubble walls, underwater speakers, and more electricity, all built to hold that one choke point, and the carp still bred faster than any crew could pull them out. That's when people started asking a different kind of question. Forget building a wall against the carp. What if something already living in the river could just eat them for free? The river actually had a fish that could do the job, a native one, gone for decades. The alligator gar, up to 8 feet long, over 300 pounds. Only the white sturgeon grows bigger in North American freshwater, a long snout packed with 2 rows of teeth, diamond-shaped armor, a line of fish that swam these waters back when dinosaurs walked the land. Then people wiped it out of the north. Anglers and commercial crews saw a giant, toothy fish and called it trash. They shot it, netted it, and left it to rot on the bank. Engineers walled off the rivers with levees and dams and cut the gar off from the shallow backwaters where it spawns. It had nowhere left to breed. In Illinois, the last wild alligator gar got pulled out in 1966. By 1994, the state made it official, extirpated, gone from Illinois, still alive down south, just not here. Then people decided to bring it back. In the late 1990s, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service started raising alligator gar in hatcheries. Illinois joined in and began releasing young gar into its waters in 2010. Now put the two fish in the same room. A dying native monster with a mouthful of teeth coming back to the exact river a foreign fish had just taken over. People did the obvious math. Bring back the biggest predator in the river and let it eat the carp. The idea caught fire. In 2016, Illinois lawmakers voted on the record that the gaur was the one native fish big enough to swallow an adult Asian carp. Everyone had their answer. Everyone except the people who actually raised the fish and dumped them in the river. The man who put those fish in the water was Dan Stevenson. He ran fisheries for the Illinois DNR. His crews raised the gaur. His crews released them. And every time a reporter called to ask if the gaur was going to eat the carp, he said the same thing. The stockings had nothing to do with Asian carp. They never had. The point was to bring back a native fish that got wiped out and give anglers a giant to chase. He said it as plainly as a man can say it. The gaur will have no effect on the Asian carp. Nobody printed that part. The numbers show why he was right. From 2010 to 2013, Illinois stocked about 6,000 alligator gaur. Most died small. Only around 1,500 grew big enough to survive in the wild. 1,500 fish spread across hundreds of miles of water is a bucket of paint thrown at a burning building. And even a full-grown gaur can't eat what people imagined. A grown silver carp is a heavy foot-plus fish. A gaur's mouth only opens so wide. It can take a carp in the first few months of its life. After that, the carp outgrows the gaur's mouth and swims off safe. The biologists said it for years. But the Associated Press ran a story that went out to papers nationwide, and the headline sold the gaur as the weapon that would take the river back. The public locked onto it because it's a clean picture. An ancient monster comes home and eats the invaders. A boring answer never beats a good monster story. The gaur stayed the hero in everyone's head long after the science said it couldn't be. But the carp near Starved Rock really were disappearing. The numbers really were falling, year after year. Two other things were pushing them out. Nobody put either one on a poster. The first one doesn't have teeth, it has a paycheck. Illinois started paying commercial fishermen 10 cents a pound over market to pull carp out of the water. Over 15 years, that 10 cents dragged 50 million pounds of fish out of the Illinois River alone. Across every waterway in the state, nearly 78 million pounds. Picture the job. You're out before light with a boat and a net, and the fish you're chasing is worth 10 cents a pound over market. You don't get rich on one carp. You get rich on 40,000 of them. So the crews stopped fishing like fishermen and started working like a harvest. You don't pull 78 million pounds of fish out of a river with a rod and a hook. The crews used a trick borrowed from China, the unified method. First, they wall off a section of river with net. Then the boats line up at the far end and start hitting the hulls. Remember what a boat motor does to a silver carp. The crews aren't fighting that anymore. They're using it. The noise pushes the carp forward, thousands of them, pressing them into a mass. The crews walk the nets in tighter than tighter until the water in front of the boat stops looking like water and starts looking like fish. Then they lift. One operation off the Illinois River pulled 750,000 pounds in a single haul. The crews have a name for the next trick. They catch a few carp, bolt a radio transmitter onto them, and drop them back in. They call them Judas fish. Because carp swim in schools, the tagged fish goes straight back to the pack, and the transmitter tells the crews exactly where the pack is. A carp leading the hunters to the rest of the carp. Then Illinois tried something stranger. They tried to make you eat the problem. The trouble was never the fish, it was the word. Say carp to an American, and he pictures a bottom feeder rooting through mud. Silver carp doesn't touch mud. It eats plankton, and it comes out white, mild, and lower in mercury than most of what's in the freezer aisle. Didn't matter. Nobody orders carp. So in 2022, the state spent about $600,000 to give the fish a new name. They called it Copy, short for copious. Chefs put copy burgers and copy tacos on menus. The state figured removal might pull 12 million pounds out in that first year. 2 months in, it had already topped 10. That's Force 1. Paychecks, nets, and dinner plates. Force 2, nobody planned. The carp climbing the Illinois River hit a wall about 50 miles from Lake Michigan and stalled there for more than a decade. A team at the University of Illinois went looking for why. They already had a clue. An earlier study found the carp near Chicago showed stress deep in their genes. The kind of stress you get from swimming in contaminated water. In 2024, they took water from the polluted stretch where the carp stopped and dropped